Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you, Dave. I was asked several months ago to come out here and speak, and I've had kind of a canned Portland gear talk that I've given probably 50 plus times over the last couple years to high school, college groups around town. And with my parents here, a little raise hand. All right, Duck alums. Duck alums, we're all Ducks here. My fiance, Noelle, next to her. Hello, Noelle. One of my employees, Courtney. Hi, Court. I thought this would be an interesting and kind of a safe place to open up about something I've never talked about before, something bigger than me. Portland gear is what I do, but it is not what I'm learning, who I am. You may be wondering why I'm sitting, and that's because I fainted 4 times, 2 of them in the last year in public, and I now struggle with anxiety around fainting. And I'm playing it safe tonight. When I met with Dave about a month ago, I said, what are the chances I could sit? And it just kind of put my mind at ease. Do I have a clicker, Dave?
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Thank you. I got to hit the slide. Remember, we worked on this.
Green is good.
Green is good. Boom. So my anxiety comes as a feeling of constant nervousness and worry. I'm restless when I'm thinking of all the events that I have going on, my busy schedule, where my next meal will be, anything that could have uncertain outcomes. And this is pretty new to me, but something I now have to deal with every day. I've seen professionals, I've tried medication, I've gone to therapy, and just anything to kind of help me through events like tonight. So let me share with you a quick glimpse into what I call my mental prison, I guess. So a year ago, I was asked to speak at the University of Portland. Again, a talk I've given, UP in the house. This is a talk I've given a ton of times. I talk about Portland gear. I talk about how I built a business from Instagram, how I turned a Volkswagen bus into a store, and a store into a place of community, and how I get to work with my best friends. But this time it was different. 2 weeks before this, I was going to Japan on a work trip. And it was a big trip for me, and I had someone waiting for me in Japan who was going to pick me up. Upon arrival at the airport, I had missed my connecting flight. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, there's time. I have 5 hours to get to San Francisco. There's someone in this airport has a flight to San Francisco. And she told me no. She said I could take the flight tomorrow. And instantly, this feeling of something out of my control, this person waiting for me in Japan, I remember the lights. They became warm. My vision began to narrow. And I woke up on the floor as strangers were looking down on me, worried about what had happened. At the doctor's office, 2 weeks later, I was getting some routine shots, something I've gotten before. And I don't love shots. I don't think any of us do. And I was just looking away. And when I looked down, I saw that they were skin shots. And I just wasn't expecting them. And the doctor caught me as I fainted backwards, almost onto the needles. I was just overwhelmed by this. I'd never really experienced it before. And I began thinking and compulsing about when was this going to happen next. The doctor performed heart scans, and everything was fine. I'm healthy. I work out. I eat well. But it was just something that was off. I remember him telling me that I would have to learn my signs. But what were my signs? How do I learn them? I asked. As I stood in front of those students at UP, I began to feel those signs. The lights, they got warm. My vision began to narrow. The doctor told me to breathe and try to get oxygen. That became hyperventilating. Mid-talk, I made up a lie, which you see right here, and said that my leg was cramping so that I could sit closer to the ground. In my mind, I kept saying, get to the ground. It's shorter to fall. I sat down in front of these 250 kids, mid-talk, and began to have an anxiety attack. After the presentation, I was overwhelmed as nearly every kid wanted a picture and to say hello. And I sat there with my knees between my legs, just fighting through it, just trying to be polite. As the last kid left, I remember falling to the ground and just crying, not really knowing what had happened. After I finally mustered the strength to get to the car, I worried about how was I going to get home. Was I going to faint while I was driving? We didn't have autonomous vehicles back then. I wish this would have been a little faster. I could have jumped in an AV. And I remember the doctor saying I needed to get my heart rate up. So I made it like 3 blocks down the UP bluff, and I found a park. And I just started doing wind sprints, thinking that would get my heart up. And I was so anxious on the ride home, pulling over every few blocks, worried about getting in an accident. As I got home, I collapsed onto the couch and was exhausted. This was all over a little year ago, and safe to say a moment that I realized something needed to change. Why was this happening? What was off in my life? In the doctor's office, in typical Marcus's fixer fashion, I asked how I could get better, and he said a mix of medication and therapy. I said I'll start them both tomorrow. And I just didn't like this, and I wanted to be cured. I'm only 28 years old. I'm a builder and a fixer, and I like to get things done, and I constantly rely on my mental checklists. I feed off the energy of other people, and I've just always considered myself a people person, love being at events, meeting people. I'm a proud duck, 2012, and might even say, due to my parents, who I love, that I was a little brainwashed. Me and my father at Pioneer Father every year with my mother. Mr. Fred Jones up there, if anyone recalls. He actually, ironically, came into the store about a month ago, and I showed him this picture, and we got a good laugh.
Well, this is my favorite. Look at this. This is an acceptance letter in the U of O, and they're admitting 12-year-olds. SAT scores must have been off the chart.
3.8 GPA and guaranteed admittance. And I won Teacher's Pet. That helped. I thank my mom for that one. So I started an Instagram page about 6 years ago at Portland. Does anyone have, I'm going to start with this. Does anyone have an Instagram? Raise your hand if you're like, what is Instagram? All right, we're in the middle. So I started a page at Portland with just a simple desire of posting pictures of the city, bridges, rivers, events, things that were going on. This quickly grew and is now at 320,000 people all over the world who look to me to be the voice of the city. I work in a world of influencers, photographers, designers, collaborators, everyone wanting to be featured on my Instagram page. And it's just grown way bigger than I ever could have expected. I'm also the founder of a small business here in town called Portland Gear. So we sell hats and shirts, thank you. One fan in the house. Hats and shirts with the letter P, but if you see on the inside there is a state of Oregon. That's kind of the whole thing. We don't just sell hats, we sell pride. We sell community. We want people to be part of what we are part of. We've done amazing collaborations with brands in town, nonprofits, worked on cool products, and we've shipped a piece of Portland to every state in 59 countries. I employ and work with some of my best friends. We have lines around the building on event days. We get to party and hang out with trailblazers and timbers and go to events. But I'm always left thinking, so what? And I sometimes look at these moments and I have to kind of pinch myself and see CJ McCollum wearing jackets and knowing him personally, and seeing Kevin Love of Lake Oswego wearing a Portland Gear hat next to LeBron James, like at the finals. Sam Hunt, literally a famous dog wearing a Portland Gear sweatshirt. Tobin and Allie of the Thorns, Myers Leonard. You know, I live in this crazy world. For context, for you that get social media and for you that don't, as of today, June 1st, this is kind of my social media life over the last 4 years. I have posted 3,600 photos. I've created them or found them. I've written the captions. I found the hashtags. I've posted them at the perfect time of day to get the most engagement. That doesn't even count the amount of tens of thousands of times I've then checked on them to see if any of my 65,000 comments were negative, or if my mom was going to text me and say that this person said this. Always got to watch out for that. If you know Instagram, there's daily stories. I've put up near 3,500 parts of those into my life. I've been tagged in over 13.2 million, or have received over 13.2 million likes. I've tweeted over 1,200 times and been tagged in over 1 million photos. Is this healthy? Some might ask. Unfortunately, is this the new normal? We all know the answer to this, but are we addicted to screens? Is this what every kid is now striving for? Is narcissism, social media, and mobile technology a force for good or evil? I could argue both sides. Is this sustainable? Honestly, lots of questions that I wish I had the answers to. One thing I know for certain is I'm in this game and it's a rat race. There are days I feel like I'm just spinning in a cage going nowhere. Want to know the most intriguing part? I created all of it. I've never had a boss. No one's never told me when to post or that I had to. I can't escape the very thing that I once loved and built out of passion. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a pie eating contest and the winner is more pie. And although that is a beautiful Marion Berry pie, I don't even like pie. The term mindfulness has become popular over the last decade, and it's because we're so connected to our phones and we're so all this. But it's sad that we've had to put a word and a title on something that was once called balance. When we practice mindfulness or balance, we begin to live in the present and stop rehashing future and previous events. And this involves acceptance of our thoughts and not judging them. I want to be clear, I'm not an expert on pie. I don't know the answers to these questions, but what I do know is that I'm part of this, and I'm looking for the answers too. My beautiful fiance and I are getting married in 2 months, and in meeting, yeah, give it up for her. She's got to deal with me, so give it up for her. When we met with our pastor, one of the things he talked about was this idea of emotional deposits, withdrawals, overdrafting, and balance. And it's something that I've kind of coined as the bank of emotions. So here are my principles in this context, and walk with me through this analogy. But think of it as a real bank ledger, your real checking account. 1, there are deposits, which are doing something for yourself or for others. There are withdrawals, which are having something done for you. Overdrafting, which for me has been anxiety, for some is depression, their health, their overall well-being. And what ultimately we're trying to achieve is balance, happiness, contentment, or Zen. These are kind of some fun 5 principles that I've created. 1, you can't make a withdrawal without first making deposits. Number 2, deposits and withdrawals have to equal in order to achieve balance. Number 3, if you withdraw more than you've deposited, you overdraft. Number 4, the more deposits you make, the larger withdrawal that can be. And number 5, you don't always have to know what you're depositing for. Simply put, I'm overdrawn. I've worked so hard over the last 8 years building this thing, taking minimal days off, never turning off that phone, being involved in 13 million social interactions, posting thousands of things. My body and mind are exhausted. Sometimes I feel numb, and sometimes I even faint. I've given all of my energy to Portland Gear, my employees, the city, that I forgot to make deposits in myself and my own relationships. I love Noelle very much, but she'd be the first to tell you that I often don't seem present when I'm with her, and I am what she calls a phone zombie. She'll find me just walking around like this as she's speaking to me, and I'm just in one ear, out the other, and that's common, and I don't like it. You know, last year I went so far as actually moving above my store so that I was 100% there, always accessible, maximizing my commute with 0 separation and boundaries. The very thing that I have created again and love has begun to cripple me. On my days off, I even can get sick to my stomach having to walk into the store now. Marcus was lost somewhere deep in those photos and that Instagram years ago. And I'm working on getting it back. Like my emotional bank, I see and feel when I give more, I get it back tenfold. As humans, we're growing, constantly learning, and always a work in progress. Now, I understand that I'm young, and you may be thinking that he's only lived but a quarter of the things in his life, and I agree. I know that I will own a home, have kids, get married, take care of a family, the ups and downs of a business, illness. But this is my story right now, and it's just my current situation. I hope this is truly just one chapter in my book, and I can look back on it down the road. And I don't expect it to get any easier. Tonight is just a way of me kind of coming out and saying this, inventing, and doing something that I haven't done before and making me feel uncomfortable again. You know, my anxiety comes around these controlled environments. And when I give that canned Portland Gear speech, it's controlled. And this is saying something different. Mine personally is manifested into fainting. But how does your body react when it's overdrawn? Do you notice it? Do you even listen to it? Take this week to keep track, build your own way of writing down your transactions, and see if you can achieve balance. If you can, full steam ahead. Congrats. If you can't, know we're working on it with you. Maybe you fish, sew, go on walks, golf with your dad, root for the green and yellow, work. Work on getting those intentional moments of deposits back into your life. If you can do this, keep going. I'll leave you with one thing, and that's these devices, they may last forever, but I hope they pass. Social media pages will come and go. They already have. Who remembers MySpace? Technology is simply evolving, and according to his graph too, just too fast for us to keep up with. Spend time with your loved ones. Spend times on things that bring you true meaning and joy. Make more deposits than withdrawals. And if you ever feel a little faint, just ask Dave Ray if you can have a chair. Thank you, guys.